Good morning, everyone. Much as I'd like to sit around and talk shop on this Mercury Mark II 5, we can't do that today. We'll hopefully get to that later this summer because we want to get this engine up and running. Today's discussion is a bit of a departure. It's not boats, it's not tractors, it's tools, or a tool anyway. This is a King Canada 10-ton hydraulic shop press. If you've come to this video via my Toyota Venza repair issue, then you know why I've got it. If not, essentially the quick and dirty version is the input bearing on the rear differential coupler of the all-wheel drive system in the Venza. It's a 2011. Has failed. The dust cover has, I guess, cracked or worn out and allowed dirt and other crap in there, and so it's whining at high speeds. And I need to replace it. Toyota, helpfully, has offered to do just that for $3,500, if you can believe it, because their idea of solving the problem is to take out the entire differential coupler, clutch packs and everything, and throw it all away just so they can replace a $30 bearing. So we've said no thank you, Toyota. We're going to try and do this ourselves. And I've seen a couple of other people tackle this. What sort of freaks me out is that everybody, once they get the coupler out, which is made of alloy, they start beating on it with hammers and things to get the bearing out. Now, I'm no machinist, but I know enough that the beating on housings and bearings to get these things apart is not a great idea. So I thought I would spend the $300 on this press. I probably have some other uses for it related to the Ferguson tractor rebuild that will probably be coming up. And then I thought, well, why don't I just talk about my experience about what it's like trying to buy, assemble, and use a press like this. So stay tuned for that. So very briefly, this is belongs to a family of presses in around the 8, 10, 12 ton range that seem to be available, from the usual suspects: Princess Auto, Canadian Tire, etc. And there always seem to be in and around $250 to $350. Spend a lot of time reading reviews, and almost universally what you will hear is that no matter the brand name on it, it's an offshore make, shipped in from China, generally medium to low quality, and suitable for occasional use. I don't think any proper machine shop would probably buy one of these things. They'd have a larger 60-ton unit. The other thing that seems to be a universal complaint about these things, no matter where they come from, is that the instructions are terrible. That they've probably been either written by somebody that doesn't speak English as a first language, which is a big enough challenge as it is, or they've been translated from something else that was not English. I was actually going to buy Canadian Tire's model, and of course, now that we're in the lockdown and they were doing curbside pickup, I could not get anybody to answer any questions via email about, had a couple of shipping and delivery questions. So after 3 weeks of trying to reach the order desk at Canadian Tire and repeatedly being assured that they were working hard to fill my order, I thought, all right, I got to go somewhere else because this car needs to be fixed. So, I know, tough times, and they were doing the best they could, but I had to move on. So instead of taking advantage of the, I think it was on sale, I'm going to say $250 or so, down from maybe $320, I moved on to King Canada, and this, I believe, was $290 down from $350. But shipping was included, which is nice. And that was the other sort of shock. This thing weighs 110 pounds. So whether it was put together well or not is one thing, but there's no arguing that the thing is a fairly hefty chunk of metal. Now, why King Canada? I've only had one other experience with them, and it's been great. So, a friend gave me this little King Canada compressor, and it's well built, it's quiet, it's powerful for its size, and even though it's seen some heavy duty use before I got it, it's really one of the best little compressors I've used. So I thought, all right, well, let's give these guys a try on the tool. I'm not harboring any illusions that they've built it themselves. It says right here, imported for them, but it does not say anywhere where it's made. I'm assuming it's made in China, like most of the rest of these things, but we'll see if we have the same issues assembling and operating it that seem to plague some of the other manufacturers. So, ordered it up online, paid for it, was promised delivery in, I think, 6 to 8 days, and it came on the 7th day, I believe. Truck pulled up, a guy dropped a skid, and then it's when I went to stand it up on its end that I discovered just how heavy the damn thing was. So, in the end, maybe it was better that I didn't try the old Canadian Tire curbside pickup. Packed acceptably. That's a sheet of plywood you see under there. So even though it's in a cardboard box, there's an attempt to give some rigidity to the packing. Like I said, we've got a pretty heavy-duty frame here. And then inside, you've got your plates and things to set under the press. I've shown you this a couple of times. I have a cool big ass, oil-filled pressure gauge to let you know how much pressure you're actually exerting. This really is the heart of the thing. So that's the ram there, and then the hand pump here. So poured myself a cup of coffee, took out the instruction booklet, and started to read. And at first glance, it's actually a pleasant surprise. This does not strike me as something that's been translated from another language. I mean, we've got our English French. The biggest problem so far is that when you choose the English side, you end up getting the French assembly instructions. So I think they've assembled this backwards or something. It flips back and forth between English and French. So you've got inside here your assembly instructions, and then getting to know your press. Flip it over to the French side, open it up, and you've got the general and specific instructions. But we've all sort of seen the hilarious translations of other languages into English, and I don't see any of that awkwardness here. Sort of weird tense issues and bizarre synonyms that just don't work for anyone that's actually speaking the language. So I was actually pleasantly surprised when I first saw these instructions. So even if this thing has been imported by King, I think they have gone to the trouble of hiring a technical writer to actually put this together. So what we're going to do is familiarize ourselves with the parts and the diagram, and then just start following this and seeing how clear and easy it is to do. So looking at our exploded diagram here and our instructions on the left, first thing we're going to do is attach one base section number 217 to the base of the frame 214 using hex bolts number 221, washers 218, spring washers 219, and hex nuts 220. Then attach the other base to the other side of the frame. That would seem to be fairly clear instructions so far, although, sort of finding the numbers on the opposite side of the page might be a bit of a challenge, but perfectly clear so far. Let's see if we can do it. All right, so we're stood up here, and our little bag of goodies presumably contains those fasteners so mentioned. Of course, one of the first criticisms that I've read about some of these things online is that, if I can get this down here, holes don't line up. You know, the thing hasn't been milled out properly. Looks pretty good to me from here. In fact, that looks, I'd have to say, exactly perfect. And I think we can see way down the other side, same issue. So that so far is not a problem. All right, we have our bolts, nuts, flat washers, split washers, all referenced as according to the instructions. Equal number of parts, which is nice because that can be a problem. The other thing that can sometimes happen is that we've already mentioned the holes for things don't line up, and other times the fittings don't go through the holes without enlarging them. That is not the case here. So we're just going to give these a bit of a nip, or nip them up, as Lance would say on Bundy Bear's Shed. If you're interested in tractors at all and want to see a real friendly chap who seems unflappable no matter what happens when he's demoing things to you, check out Bundy Bear's Shed. A guy out of Queensland who's fun to watch and has all sorts of tips. Anyway, so we've done that side, and then we'll just quickly do that side. Such a great sound, eh? Success with step one. Hasn't fallen over, haven't lost fingers, haven't dropped it on my toe. Let's keep going. All right, step two, we move to the top and we're attaching the upper plate, which I guess is that, and the under plate. Again, they're numbered, 208, 209 to crossbeam frame, 214. And then after that, we obviously need some fasteners. Long hex bolts, 206 washers, and 210, and hex nuts, 211. Okay, I'm thinking that that's the top plate, that's the under plate, and then we've got our long hex bolts. The rest of the fasteners are in there. So there's the top plate in position, and kind of the first imperfection I've noted. You can see that doesn't exactly sit flat. So this piece of steel is bent up a little bit in this back corner, and you can see a little bit of daylight through there. I'm not sure that's going to make much difference unless it affects, of course, the trueness of the ram. But I have a feeling that the bottom plate will probably compensate for that. So we'll see how we go when we bolt this up. So we got this hanging here, and just a note for anyone assembling this thing single-handedly, these parts are heavy and they're hanging. So it was a little difficult to try and hold it up while getting the bolt started. What I'd probably do in the future is wrap some zip ties around this to get it suspended or supported while you do these things up. Just going to align this slightly before I tighten it up, and that's looking pretty good. What's nice to see on this model, so the fact that this is sandwiched here and does not go through dedicated bolts, I think might mean that you can slide the head back and forth for jobs that aren't symmetrical. So that's a great option to be able to do, assuming that I'm not jumping the gun and not counting something that will lock it in place. But anyway, so far it looks looks pretty good. If this can slide back and forth, it just makes the tool that much more versatile. So that's tightened down reasonably well, and you can see that those slight imperfections in the in that top plate remain. I wasn't really expecting those bolts to pull that tight or pull that true. The bottom heavier plate fits much better, and it's much thicker, so I'm not sure that's going to be a problem, the slight warpage in the top. All right, so now it looks like we are on to inserting the RAM here. They talk about the upper round nut 207, which I could not find in the package, but I'm wondering, you know what, that's probably the upper round nut. And the lower round nut, I think they call 212. Yeah, the one with the holes in it, and it's just been shipped with these things on it. So we'll just take those off and then position the